Today's weather forecast brings an intriguing twist as it signals a significant change in the atmosphere. The fierce windstorms, which have been sweeping across the region for days, are expected to gradually subside in the coming days. This much-needed relief will help ease the ongoing fire threats that have been a major concern in certain areas. With calmer winds, the chances of new fires spreading are diminishing. It is definitely cold, and there's a reason I live in North Carolina and not North Dakota. I think many of you can relate to that as well. Really, the only mild places we have right now are the Florida Keys and deep South Texas, where temperatures are in the 50s and low 60s. The Southern California coastline is also mild, but even Phoenix and Tucson experienced freezing temperatures this morning, and it's very cold around the Grand Canyon. I want to recap what happened yesterday in New England. This was interesting because I showed you the forecasts yesterday, and we definitely overachieved on the north shore of Boston and in southern parts of New Hampshire. We saw 2 to 4 inches of snow, even though only 1 to 1.5 inches were expected. So while it hasn't been a particularly harsh winter, in fact, we're in something of a snow drought here in New England, we're starting to make up some ground. Up and down East Maine, areas like Seawall and Acadia received 3 to 4 inches of snow. Looking ahead, the snow we're tracking over the next couple of days is coming from the north central states. Duluth saw over 6 inches of snow, and Wisconsin had a couple of inches as well. That snow is now moving eastward. This morning, winter weather advisories are in effect across eastern North Dakota, upper Michigan, and northern Wisconsin, as indicated by the purple shading on the map. Winter storm warnings remain in place for the Arrowhead of northeast Minnesota and parts of Montana. Elsewhere, freeze warnings are in effect for sensitive areas in the south, including Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Arizona, and California. Despite these advisories, it's a relatively quiet Sunday, which we'll gladly take. However, conditions in Southern California remain dire due to low humidity and gusty winds. Red flag warnings are in effect north and west of Los Angeles, covering Ventura County and parts of Riverside County in the Inland Empire. The concern stems from dry air being pulled in by a trough moving south of California. This trough will also pick up wind speeds aloft, creating a perfect recipe for fires or sustaining current ones. Unfortunately, this isn't the news folks in the region want to hear, but it's the reality we're facing. Across the rest of the country, there's a return of gradual moisture over the Gulf states as the air mass warms up. This will bring some chilly rain heading east toward Florida in a few days, reminiscent of last winter for some. In the northern parts of the country, we're shutting off Pacific and Gulf moisture, leading to quiet conditions, while we'll see pieces of energy moving from the upper Midwest through the Great Lakes and Northeast. No major storms are expected in the coming days. Southern California fire danger continues. Strong winds have been reported across the Santa Ana Mountains with gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour in eastern Los Angeles County and Orange County. These gusts are expected to subside as the day progresses, but we're not in the clear yet. By tomorrow morning, winds may gust over 50 miles per hour in Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, and areas around Oxnard and Malibu. South and east of LA, winds could also exceed 50 miles per hour, and near the Grapevine, gusts could reach over 60 miles per hour. Although not as intense as the winds experienced midweek, they are still significant and worth monitoring. Tomorrow, winds will gradually relax in the afternoon before picking up again in the evening. The windiest periods will be late evening and overnight, posing significant risks while people are sleeping. Unfortunately, this fire danger will persist into Tuesday. Wind models show gusts reaching 63 miles per hour, and as these winds flow offshore, they bring in even drier air. Dry air is typical for this time of year on the West Coast, but it's rare to see it this dry for such an extended period. Dew points tonight are expected to drop into the teens and single digits by tomorrow afternoon in LA. During summer, LA dew points are typically in the 50s, so this level of dryness is unusual and challenging to manage. The low 60s indicate very dry air in place, which isn't ideal for people with respiratory issues. Unfortunately, the dry conditions are expected to persist into Tuesday and possibly beyond. Regarding the smoke, there's still cause for concern. The Palisades fire continues to look severe today, and the wind direction aloft is shifting. Instead of blowing from east to west or northeast to southwest, it's now blowing more northwest to southeast. This change pulls smoke into areas like LA proper, Long Beach, and parts of Orange County before eventually moving out to sea later tonight. However, this shift comes with a new set of challenges. As we look ahead, the forecast indicates a winter that's both cold and stormy, setting the stage for a season full of unpredictable weather patterns, from heavy snowstorms in the north to intense rainfall across the plains. This winter promises to be a turbulent one. So while we'll see a brief break from the relentless winds, don't be fooled. The cold, stormy conditions are just getting started, and they're about to make their presence felt across the United States. Air quality in LA is expected to be poor today, especially if the model projections hold true. Some improvement is expected by tomorrow, but the potential for new fires remains. While conditions may gradually improve later this week, the situation in LA and surrounding areas will continue to demand close monitoring. Weekend, early next week, weather report. The East Coast is quieter today, but moisture will return this afternoon to southeast Texas and southern Louisiana. No severe weather is expected, just a cool rain, which will gradually move eastward into Mississippi, Alabama, and western Florida tonight. By tomorrow evening, North Florida will turn wet, and the rest of the peninsula will experience rain into Tuesday night. While this rain isn't expected to bring severe weather, it will be heavier at times. It's beneficial in the long term, but might be inconvenient for anyone vacationing in the area. In the northern United States, a clipper system over Lake Superior tonight will spread eastward. Most of the snow will fall on the Canadian side of the Great Lakes, but Michigan will also see some accumulation. This system will eventually move into northern New England, western New York, and Pennsylvania. Areas with upslope moisture will experience light to moderate snowfall, especially in ski regions from Tennessee to Pennsylvania, with West Virginia seeing the highest amounts. The map shows a large system over Minnesota, a piece of the polar vortex, bringing another wave of cold air to the northern states. This week will feel colder in the region, but it won't be a widespread cold event. Snow totals around the lakes will generally be a few inches, with higher amounts up to 11 inches or 25 to 30 centimeters on the Canadian side. On the U.S. side, parts of upper Michigan could see a couple of feet of snow along the western shore. In lower Michigan, snowfall will likely be limited to a few inches. For larger cities like Madison, Chicago, Milwaukee, Detroit, and Buffalo, only light to moderate snow is expected. However, lake effect snow will enhance totals in areas northeast of Syracuse toward Fort Drum and over southwestern New York near Erie. Locally, areas like Chautauqua and Cattaraugus counties and the Tug Hill Plateau could receive 6 to 10 inches of snow over the next couple of days. Rain outlook: rain will dominate the weather story for the next few days in Louisiana, with totals exceeding an inch in some areas. Heavier rainfall will move toward Mobile and the western Florida panhandle, though amounts will taper off in North Florida, southern Georgia, and central Florida. These regions will generally see less than half an inch of rain, which isn't terrible, but not ideal either. Looking ahead, the next significant system is expected to move in toward next weekend. This system will bring heavier rain, and I'll provide more details shortly. Temperature trends. In the central United States, it remains chilly. Cloud cover in Louisiana may keep temperatures in the low 40s today in places like Alexandria and Natchitoches. Houston will see upper 40s to low 50s, while Dallas stays in the 30s and low 40s. A chilly night is ahead, but temperatures are expected to rebound as the Gulf system moves out of the region. The cold air is rotating east and southeastward, but doesn't intensify significantly. While temperatures are colder than average, they're not extreme at this point. Eastern United States weather: cold air remains locked in across the eastern U.S., particularly in New England. Tonight, temperatures will stay typically chilly. Tomorrow, we'll start to see a warming trend leading to some snow melt in places like Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee. However, areas like Kentucky, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania will remain below freezing. By Tuesday, the cold air will advance further south, but encounter resistance in the southern U.S. It will still be a chilly day, with the Northeast stuck in the teens and 20s, the Mid-Atlantic and Carolinas in the 30s, and Georgia and Tennessee seeing similar temperatures. Florida will also feel the chill, with most of the state outside of South Florida experiencing 50s and low 60s. South Florida will sneak into the 70s. Discussing the next cold wave and snow, the Arctic Oscillation, AO, shows a recovery after this current cold snap, moderating temperatures later in the week. However, another wave of cold air is expected to arrive over the weekend, lasting into the following week. The Eastern Pacific Oscillation, EPO, is positive, initially bringing marine air and milder temperatures to the U.S. briefly. But by the end of next week, it trends negative, signaling colder weather for much of the country except the West Coast. This negative phase will likely peak next weekend, setting the stage for a significant cold wave. The Western Pacific Oscillation, WPO, also trends negative, reinforcing colder conditions. When both the EPO and WPO are negative, it's a strong indicator of widespread cold in the U.S. The North Atlantic Oscillation, NAO, which is currently negative, locks cold air into the east. This phase transitions to positive for a few days, but reverts to negative next weekend, extending the cold pattern into the following week. The Pacific North American Oscillation, PNA, is positive, favoring cold in the southeast. It trends neutral later in the month, but does not strongly signal significant winter weather for the southern states until the end of January. Upper level patterns. Looking at upper level patterns, cold air aloft is indicated by blues, purples, and whites, while reds show warm air and high pressure. The eastern U.S. will get a break from winter weather toward the end of this week. By Friday evening, the next cold shot arrives, originating directly from the North Pole. This cross-polar flow will bring Arctic air into the western U.S. by the weekend, which will intensify and spread south and east the following week. Long Range Outlook by Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 20th. A colder setup will dominate the central and eastern U.S. This pattern will likely last through January 23rd to 24th. A thaw may occur toward the end of January, extending into early February. February could see a flip with colder weather in western Canada, Alaska, and the Northwest, while the Southeast warms up. This pattern resembles the one seen at the end of December, which led to severe weather in the Southeast. Short-range forecast. The European model predicts a new wave of cold air descending through the Great Lakes, keeping the Northeast frigid. A trough is also expected to cut off south of California, which is concerning. This setup often creates a stronger offshore flow, increasing fire danger. Unfortunately, this pattern seems poised to reload rather than bring much needed rain to California. And guys, if you enjoyed this one, don't forget to like and leave a comment below. I'll see you all in the next video.